Reagan, I'll let you know when it looks like we've got numbers plateauing here.
Okay.
All right, I think we're probably good to get started, Reagan.
Perfect. Great. If we join the webinar, I'm not seeing anybody but the 6 of us. We're good? Okay, perfect. All right. Well, welcome everybody. Thanks for joining us for the NAIA-ADA Spotlight. We're excited to have 3 of our fantastic athletic directors kind of talk us through their journey, some highs and lows of their careers, and we'll take some questions. We'll monitor the chat for questions, but just want to hear from some of our esteemed colleagues of what's it like to be a longtime NAIA athletic director, and how do you help your coaches and your student athletes and your staff all be successful? And we've got 3 of the best sitting in front of us here. We've got Arabie Conner for Ottawa University, Jesse Gotting from SAGU, and Chad Briscoe from Grace College. Let's go ahead, Jesse, let's start with you.
All right, so how did I get here?
You didn't say no to the invite.
Yes, the short version. So I've actually been at SAGU since 2002. Now, I spent up until 2011 as football coach. From 2011 to January of 2015, I did both AD and football coach, and then have been athletic director since. So I am probably, you talk about the positions that I hold now and some of the influence that I have both at my institution and as well as in the NAIA, and I'm probably the most unlikely person in the world to have that happen. Did not have an athletic background as a family. I am a first-generation college student from, a son of a farmer who was the son of a farmer who was the son of a farmer. And so when I said, I think I want to be involved in athletics, that was kind of weird to everyone in the family. But I will say that my experiences that I've had have kind of uniquely qualified me for where I am, and the giftings that I have from God have uniquely qualified me for where I'm at as well. And so that, now in my, let's see, what is it, 11th or 12th year, goodness, this as AD, it's been a very good journey, and I'm very pleased to be here. Thank you guys for hosting this, by the way.
Perfect. Thanks, Jesse. Arabie.
Yeah, again, thanks. I'll echo what Jesse said. Thanks for having me on the call here and inviting me to do this. Athletics has really been a part of my life, really since I was little. Growing up in the 70s and 80s, that was a time of rapid growth for girls for sure, and opportunities. And I was blessed to have parents that wanted to get me involved in anything and everything involving sports. So I did about everything. Had an opportunity to go on to William Jewell to play basketball. Basketball was my first love, but also played a couple of years of softball there and on the first women's soccer team. They were looking for anybody that could walk and chew gum at that time, in 91, 92 to help start that women's soccer program up there. So that's interesting to think about that. That's when women's soccer was really taking off in college athletics. So got asked to help coach basketball there my 5th year, kind of with an interim coach, and then coach basketball there with the new head coach that came in for a couple of years. I then got a call that the Ottawa University women's basketball position was open and I should put my name in on it. And I've been here since 1996 at Ottawa University. So it's been a wonderful journey, just full of opportunities. The leaders I've had an opportunity to work with on this campus has been amazing. I kind of joke that, I've been here a long time, but I feel like I've been different places too, just because I've been mentored by so many wonderful leaders. I became AD my last 2 years coaching. So I was coaching, teaching, and AD for a couple of years. We had 13 athletic programs at the time. And something had to give. We were in process of adopting my youngest 3. We have 4 kids now. And that was a lot to juggle. Not that being AD alone isn't enough. We started growing our athletic programs here. Went from 13 athletic programs to 33 athletic programs now. Just a wonderful team of support here at Ottawa University. Bruce Tate has been all along. I think he might be on this today with us. He's my associate AD, assistant coach here with me. Took over the women's basketball team then, and as a full-time associate AD here. Also have some other athletic administrators in the department that have been here for 20 plus years. So luckily we've had a lot of stability as we've kind of grown this thing. So couldn't have done it without them. And it's been a fun journey. Obviously love being around sports, the competitive nature of it, but just the opportunity to make an impact on these lives every day is just definitely a true blessing in my life. So appreciate the opportunity.
Thanks, Arabie. Yeah.
Well, as my other colleagues have said to you and Drew, thank you guys so much for the opportunity. Great to be with you today. And my goodness, as Jesse mentioned, the journey, I think the one thing about it, it goes fast. 14 years now as the director of athletics here at Grace College, and started in 07. And I think you look back on all the success and failures and the learning opportunities within it, it just goes quickly. So you thank the Lord for the journey. I think that's one thing I have really embraced, is that the journey of the highs and the lows and how athletics has changed. I never thought there'd come a day when we'd give scholarships for esports or bowling, but here we are. And it's great to see the growth of athletics across the landscape. My journey, I grew up in a pastor's home, but my dad was a coach and grew up in sports and loved being close to it. I think the most important thing that I enjoyed was just watching the life change that took place of using a ball or a sport to impact and shape and change a life for Christ. And I enjoyed that journey and being a part of that journey. And I was one of those lives that was impacted as well. So the athletic director piece and experience of it, I think for all of us, is that it's fun to watch a life change. Now, the other part that I think I've learned, and I haven't mastered, maybe Jesse or Arabie, you have, I have not mastered yet to be able to juggle. I don't know about you guys, but take the picture of a juggler with, say, 20 or 30 balls in their hands. And for an athletic director, let's add another 20 or 30 balls on top of that, all at the same time. And I think trying to learn the juggles of all of the things that we have to do, from paperwork to mentoring to walking into some tough situations to educating our coaches, you name it, across the board. As Arabie mentioned, just the many growths of the program she has at Ottawa. It's fun to be a part of this, but there's a lot of balls in the air that we're constantly juggling. And so I know I pray for wisdom every day, pray for strength every day for us to be able to hopefully not drop a ball. And if we do drop a ball, I always say just pick it up really quick to the best of our ability. But it's a fun journey. And I love it too, is the fact that it's never Groundhog's Day. I don't know about you, but every day is different. I have a schedule. Every morning I get up and I've got something written out. My schedule has never gone how it was supposed to go from 7 a.m. until midnight that day. Never, ever. So I know in the world of our being athletic director, I love it never being Groundhog's Day, but also you become Smokey the Bear, putting out forest fires pretty quick as well. So, but a fun journey. Love being a part of it and love being with my colleagues here to learn from you guys as well. So thanks for the opportunity today.
Fantastic. Thank you, three. Drew, I think you have a follow-up for me really quick.
Well, Arabie and Jesse, you had extensive coaching careers, before you hit the AD's chair. Chad, you did not, correct? You
Mine was a little bit shorter.
You just went right into it.
A little bit shorter.
What would you say? How would you say your? I think for me, my coaching career kind of went into my administrative duties, and I had to learn at one point that I'm not a coach. I am a coach in one way, but I've got to wear a different hat and show a little bit more wisdom. How did your experience as a coach shape who you are as an athletic director?
I think I'll jump in on that one maybe a little bit. So I think that the empathy aspect of it for me, kind of knowing those highs and lows of a coach has certainly helped. And I feel like, having been a coach, I feel like, in the AD position, that we coach coaches, right? So being able to deliver that student experience without being directly responsible for a certain group takes a little bit different turn as we work with our coaches to try to make sure that we create that student athlete experience. So for me, I think the empathy, you know, what people go through in terms of whether it's a scholarship battle or if it's a difficult situation working with a student. For me, I've been in those shoes before, and it's just helped me kind of have that empathy and helping listen and kind of help them think about that situation from a couple of different angles. So that's kind of how I'd answer that probably.
Yeah, I would say I understand very well what it is to be under-resourced. And in the fact that you are maybe under-resourced, yeah, that means that you can't do everything, but you can do something. And pick out the something that you can do and do it well. And, you know, that may not be, everybody wants the wins and losses, but that may not be where, I mean, you're just, in some cases, just too under-resourced to do that. So what can you do to narrow that gap? And what can you do to accentuate other aspects of the program? Because these kids are not going to be playing for you when they're 30. You get a 4 to 5 year window. And how can you best develop them in that time? How can you make their athlete experience as good as possible? That, you know, so I don't have much sympathy for people who come in and say, hey, you know, what are we going to do? I just can't win here. I can't do anything. Well, you can do something. So figure out what you can do. And then the other thing that I think, you know, being a coach helped was, and this is kind of a lesson, but everybody comes under authority at some point or another. So don't try to put the cart before the horse. Okay. There is a chain of command. I now stand in the middle of that chain of command. At one point, I was down on the bottom rung of that chain of command. And I had to learn at that point that, you know, don't put the cart before the horse. People are making decisions above you for a reason. Make sure that you understand that and don't try to circumvent their decisions. That just creates pain for everybody.
No, that's great. It's yeah, when you talk about that chain of command, can you guys talk a little bit about how, and maybe I'm unique to this, but how that's kind of changed and evolved over the years? I think we all agree student athletes are very different than what they were 5, 10, 15, 20 years ago. And the way that the student athletes have, you know, kind of evolved to, you know, they want what they want when they want it, and they're willing to go above you into the next step. Or, you know, how do you help the student athletes understand, you know, why there's a chain of command and how to help them achieve their goals, both academically and athletically? And, you know, I know things come to me that I'm like, have you talked with your coach? Well, no. Okay, so how do we redirect and how do we help them understand this process when they've grown up in the AAU system of, you know, I've got one game, it's fine that I lost, I'm going to get the next game, I don't like this team, I'm jumping in the next team. And so how do you help them navigate that in the college setting?
Chad, you want to try that one?
Yeah. Again, I didn't know if we're passing it around. I think for us, it starts first with the parents. That I want to try to educate the parents as much as possible, because again, we know that they may be hearing a different, the student athlete hearing a different voice, and of course that voice telling them what to do, but also just educating the parents first. So when the parents come in for dropping off their student athletes here at Grace, I meet with all of the parents when they come in by myself and share with them the importance of helping their son and daughter grow up, and again, learning the importance of effective communication, not just communication, but you know, I can't read your mind. I don't expect you to be Superman or Superwoman when you walk in as a freshman. You're going to be a deer in headlights. And how can we help you make that transition from what you've known for so long into a college sector where you talk about this chain of command that, Reagan, as you mentioned, have you talked to your coach first? Well, no, I'm coming straight to you. We need to go talk to your coach first. And then if I need to get involved, then we'll meet collectively as a group. But you don't need to, you know, send my president an email, because the president's going to send it back to me and I'm going to talk with you. So it's, I think, helping educate a little bit to the best of our ability. But I think it starts with the effective communication first, of letting them know what that looks like. Now, you and I both know that when the student athlete is not getting what they want, very quickly they try to go above all of us and create a little bit of a stir. And at that point in time, then it's like helping educate them of understanding that really, in essence, the buck stops with us, you know, and if my president has to be involved, it's at a much deeper level. And so trying to help them hone in on getting those questions answered to the best of our ability, I think hopefully helps with education of parents and then also the kids once they get here.
No, that's a great answer, Chad. I think one of the things that when we meet with recruits, I tell them whether they're at our institution or somewhere else, that at some point your student is going to call home and they're not going to like us because, you know, growth happens in the uncomfortable, and we're going to challenge them to be uncomfortable in a lot of different ways. Your job is to listen, to love, and kick them back to us and say, you know, she said this was going to happen, right? So try and preempt it even before they're a student athlete here or wherever, to try and help the next administration if they don't land on our campus. Good. Really quick, can each of you maybe talk about a mentor that you had that was really impactful and how it might have helped, you know, formulate you as an administrator, as a coach, or help guide you in your career?
Yeah, I'll jump in there. When I was 20, my dad died of pancreatic cancer. And so I went to college that fall and met a man he's 10 years older than I am, but he was coaching at the institution. He was not coaching football, which is what I was playing. He was coaching volleyball and women's basketball at a small school. And then I got a job as a work study. And in that school, his other job was on maintenance. So we ended up getting to know each other really well. And he was a man of wisdom, a man who would, you know, he would be kind to me, not nice. Being nice is just placating people to say what they want to say and what they want to hear. Being kind is saying these strong words in love that they need to hear. And so he was a very kind individual to me, as well as a mentor. And it shaped a lot of the way that I still look at things, the conversations that we had and the situations that I saw him go through over the, you know, number of years that we worked together.
Arabie?
Yeah. Yeah, I just think of so many. It's kind of hard for me to think of one. I think of all the different coaches I had through the years. Obviously, my parents, a big influence in my life. Since I arrived at Ottawa, though, Andy Carrier was the men's basketball coach here, longtime basketball coach here, and he was the athletic director. Actually, he had about 3 different stints as athletic director. He was the person they called on here to come and start fixing it again while he balanced his coaching duties with the basketball team. And so when he stepped down and they came and asked me if I wanted to be AD in 2004, he continued on, you know, coaching here. And to be a brand new AD and have somebody just with his experience and just his perspective on things was a huge influence on me and really what we've been able to build here through the years. He's been a mentor to so many different coaches here through the years, but always just that person that you could go to and help you think through a situation and, you know, keeping kind of those main things, the main thing all the time, keep it in perspective. And really the way we built things here that he started really was no program is going to succeed at the expense of another. And that's something that's really guided us here through the years. We didn't have really that 1 or 2 programs that we're only going to invest in while the other ones just kind of get by. And to be able to look in the faces of all the coaches here and know that you're doing the best you possibly can with the resources that you have to give them the opportunity to be successful in this competitive arena that we all are in has been something for me that has made this job something that I've truly enjoyed. I feel like being fair to each and every one of our coaches and each and every one of our programs and doing the best that we can has been something very important to me that has really kind of stood the test of time here in the transition of leadership. So.
I think just as Arabie's just shared, I think so many names come to mind really quick, from Sunday school teachers to coaches to my parents. For me here at Grace, I kind of, with Arabie mentioned as well, I think in the last couple years, I was hired back in 07 by our previous president, Dr. Bill Cadup. And Dr. Cadup had been in higher education for many years, a provost at several schools, started football at a Division I institution. And so he had a little bit of an athletic background. And so I was mentored and learned a significant amount when it comes to higher education in the world of athletics directly from him. But a couple of things that really stood out and have really, I say, stuck with me as an athletic director. The first one, it starts with, which I think all of us on this call understand, is that I walk into my work every day and I'm given a platform where I get to serve other people. And I think it's so important to understand that you have to keep at the root of and the core of who we are as people, is that I'm a servant leader. That's what I get to do every day. And so serve my coaches, I serve our campus, I serve our community, serve our student athletes. And I think it's important that there's no name tag. I don't want a name tag. I don't need a name desk. There's nothing there. It's just that we're in this together. As Arabie said, I want my coaches to know that we're in this together. I pick up trash after the games, just like my student workers pick up trash after the game, because it goes back to the servant mindset that we all have to have and display in the positions that we hold. The other part that I think is also, it's a balancing act, I think, as an athletic director, is that, we all have deep relationships with our coaches. However, at the end of the day, leadership is also lonely, and knowing that there is a fine line there of how we walk that with our coaches, that I want them all to know that at the moment's notice of anything needed, I am a servant leader. I'm here to help them and serve them. But also know at the end of the day, too, there is a little bit of that professional separation that we all have to know at the end of the day, that, it's our jobs are not easy. And so navigating that, Dr. Cadup, showed me in hiring and unfortunately having to make changes as well, how to do that to the best of your ability. And so, again, the mentor pieces that the Lord has allowed people to invest in our life, hopefully we can give it on to others as well.
Oh, thanks. Those were fantastic answers. And Ched, you bring up the servant leadership, which I'm a believer in, and and you're finding that separation. Real quick, I don't spend a lot of time on this because we've got some more to get through. But Arabie, Jesse, like, I know when I got out of coaching, you go from this level with your partners in crime up and down your hallway to this step and this step. Did you guys find that difficult?
Yeah, I'll tell you a little story. My first football game, after I was no longer the head coach and I had my assistant, replace me, I literally had to force myself to make the right turn to the stadium because it was so different. And I realized at that point that, wait a minute, that camaraderie, that level of intimacy is no longer a part of my life, and it really hurt. It did. It hurt. It was balanced by the fact that, like Arabie said earlier, you're coaching the coaches, and now you have a number of people that you've opened your life up to. Suddenly, what's going on in volleyball matters to the football coach, AD. What's going on in these other sports matters. But it was, you have to, like, I have a friend of mine who says, well, everybody who goes into administration, they must get them in a closet and they all take the same stupid pill. Because the very things that you were agreeing with me with a year ago, you don't agree with me anymore. And, so you kind of have to balance that as well, right? Where now you have to be the one explaining, this is how it is, and this is why it is this way. And sometimes you got to trust me. Sometimes I can explain the whole picture, but it's not at all what it was when you were just the coach. And, but yeah, good transition, but a tough one.
Yeah, I think for me, those first 2 years were really difficult just because I was coaching and teaching. And so I was kind of trying to juggle everything. And I know that we still have, institutions in the NAIA where you have a coach that's trying to juggle both those things. And I think it's really, really difficult, because you have your peak of your season, right? And coaches are kind of walking on eggshells. Okay, well, how'd the game go last night? Can I go and talk to her about this? And so I think for me, I mean, you obviously get more comfortable as it goes with your role, but it's really kind of about those relationships that you have built within your department and how you lead. And when you're leading with your team, I think that's more my style. It makes it easier for me, you know, to have those relationships built, to involve your coaches involved in some of the decision making. As your programs grow, and I know a lot of programs have grown, I think it becomes more challenging again, right? Because carving out the amount of time that you need for a larger department versus maybe what you began with becomes the challenge of making sure you're spending that time with your coaches. And as Chad talked about the Groundhog Days, I'll tell you later about a joke about Groundhog Days we have around here, because we have Groundhog Days in a different way, where something goes on that's going to happen every single year. You can almost put it on your calendar. So, but I'll talk to you about that later. But I just feel like, you know, how we involve our coaches, what those relationships are like within the department, help make my transition. But I do think those dual role positions, especially today, the way this job has changed, those have become incredibly difficult, I think, to find balance and make sure that you're giving the time and attention that's needed to the staff, and making sure that you have their back and are advocating for the things that you're trying to get accomplished on a day-to-day basis. So.
Well, thanks. I think it's been one of the, you know, as we've kind of grown as a department as well, you know, obviously I very much, as I said, identify with Chad and the servant leadership. And I kind of felt the same way when I coached. My kids never did a drill I hadn't done, right? I don't want my coaches to do anything that I haven't done or am not willing to do. And I think that creates the culture, right? I think culture is a big word in athletics. And I think as we look at the things that we all do, you know, how do you maintain that culture year in and year out when you have coaching changes, winning to losing seasons? You know, what's one thing that you really try to instill in your coaches to keep that culture within your department? Chad, let's go ahead and start with you.
Yeah, I think for us, and I think when we're in it a long time, and Jesse may know this as well, is that when you hire coaches in, especially being at a Christian institution, it's like you think they already come ready, equipped with exactly what it is when it comes to the culture that you want implemented. Everybody knows the mission of the institution, but are they equipped with what it is that you need? And some of my coaches came to me a year ago, which I appreciate. And they said, you know, what exactly do you want it to look like? And so I'm sure many of you have kind of like your athletic department pillars, or, you know, your verses and what it is that your culture stands for. And I think it's going back to that on a consistent basis. It's like, you know, we talk about as a coach, it's like your kid's only going to hear 2 or 3 things that you say to them, and everything else they're going to forget. So what are those 2 or 3 things that you really want to hit on to make sure that is a constant reminder of this is who we are? So tell my coaches, you know, we have our pillars, and this is what you're going to be graded on at the end of the year. The wins and losses, just talking about earlier, the winning is a byproduct of the culture that you build. It's the byproduct. So that's what we're all after. So I don't want to compromise character for winning. I don't want to compromise anything from the standpoint of the mission for our institution. So it becomes that byproduct of the culture that you build. And so investing in that culture, it's kind of like making soup, stirring the pot. You have to do it every day. If I let it sit, then of course it's going to burn. You have to constantly stir the pot in such a way that you are cultivating, building, investing to get the most out of most of our coaches. Because again, it starts with us telling our coaches, you must invest in yourself first before you can go and invest in the life of a student athlete. You must invest in yourself first. So investing in our coaches, helping them grow, and then of course equipping them to go invest in the lives of our student athletes, I think is critical.
No, that's fantastic. Thanks, Chad. Jesse?
So, you know, Chad talked about hiring, and I really think this is extremely important. You know, you can have in your culture, you can have your artifacts that you have that people walk in and they see this artifact or that. It might be trophies, might be a saying that your athletic department goes by. I mean, those are artifacts that can set the tone. You have policies that you're attempting to keep people to live by. That's what, you know, you have a handbook, and people learn those from you as you go along. And then, but the culture is really what's the day-to-day interactions, and you as an athletic director, who are you every day when you show up? If you're a mercurial individual, then I don't think you have long as an athletic director at any level. You know, my secretary needs to know that the same person is going to show up tomorrow for work as showed up today, and is going to say, hi, how are you? The cleaning lady needs to know that when she sees me in the hallway in the morning, you know, she needs to know that this is the guy that says hi to me every day. And you know, that's a simple thing, but it is part of the day-to-day interaction that you are modeling and that you are setting, that becomes culture for the rest of your, and then when you go to the hiring, like Chad was talking about, well, what kind of people are you looking for? You're looking for people who can do that as well. You know, I work in an institution that is conservative, Christian institution. And one of the things that I talk about all the time when it comes to culture is, and I used to tell recruits this when I was coaching, but this is for somebody, but it's not for everybody. And it is a place that is best embraced, not endured. If Drew and I go into the Army together, we can have two entirely different experiences over that in 4 years, because he embraced it and I endured it, even though we had the same experiences. And our institution, much like many of yours, is one that is better embraced than endured. And within that, then you have to be the one who's embracing and espousing those values day after day in order to set culture.
Perfect, Arabie.
Yeah. So kind of what comes to mind on this is we just had the opportunity to build a new weight room. And so we were looking for what those words are, right? Literally like pillar words that we're going to put in this brand new facility. And so the word that just some of our coaches and staff that have been around here was family. That was going to be the word that had to go on one of these pillars in our athletic performance center. And so for us, that family word is in that athletic performance center right now. And I think it really does, whether we're interviewing coaches or talking to student athletes, it's something that I think people feel when they come here that we want them to feel, whether they're a part of this department, you know, part of one of our sports teams, and that we're going to support them. So the student athlete experience, certainly, as Chad and Jesse have talked to, is the number one most important thing. In terms of our mission statement and grace, something that I've learned during my time, I think, you know, as a young coach, you know, it was like, okay, kind of that my way or the highway kind of approach to everything. And over time, through my experiences, the real joy of this job is really utilizing the grace aspect of what we do in our positions. Whether we're working with a student athlete that made a mistake or a coach that made a mistake, the real joy that I've had in this job is when I really figured that out, of, you know, giving somebody a second opportunity and helping them along versus, okay, that was a pretty bad mess up, you're not a good fit here. That was kind of my approach, I think, early on, you know, kind of that tough approach of, okay, I'm a new young coach or a new young AD, you know, trying to kind of figure out that authority and that power. And I feel like I said, over time, I think the grace component of what we try to do here, it is a part of our mission statement, is very, very important as we grow up and mentor, you know, these young people in our departments as well as in our coaching staffs. And we've got a lot of GAs on our staff, a lot of young coaches that are trying to figure out and find their way, and they're going to misstep from time to time, and kind of how we are there for them and how we help work through that situation can be a big balancing act for all of us as we're working with a student athlete or a parent that's upset or whatever the situation might be. But those are some things that come to mind for me, is just the family, the student athlete experience for sure. And I think that grace component is really important.
No, that's fantastic. You know, wanted to, you know, Chad, you talked about juggling balls, and we've all kind of talked about how to keep that balance. You know, we encourage our coaches, again, you just said, Chad, take care of yourself first. That way you can bring value to your student athletes, to your coaching staff. What are some ways that you all take care of yourself, and how do you find the balance, and how do you, you know, focus on being present? I asked the hard one there, didn't I?
Well, I'll go first. I have no work-life balance, my wife will tell you. So, I come from a long line of workaholics and I don't, but, and, you know, I think the sport I coached, football, probably lends itself to that a little bit as well. And, now, the older I get, the more I realize just how little control you actually have in this life. You know, went through a situation this last fall where had a cancer scare and had a colon resection, and you know, and luckily in the end it was nothing, even though the doctors kept telling me something different. And I realized, okay, you know, when you leave here in however many years, somebody else is going to plug themselves in and it's going to go on. None of this is yours. You know, don't fool yourself into thinking that this is your department or your school or whatever. You're going to get unplugged and somebody else is going to plug in and they're going to go, what idiot made that decision? And so, you know, within that, what I have done, and COVID really got me doing this, because COVID was just like, he didn't work any less. It was nuts. And so in order to create some balance during that time, I started just walking, and I walk about 2-3 miles a day. And during that time, I listened to the Bible, I listened to praise and worship, do my praying, and then catch up on podcasts, whatever. And but that gives me recentering, I guess. And each morning I get up and do that. And so I've at least, you know, I've never made the bed in my life, for any of you who like that saying, but, you know, get up, it's a win. You made the bed, but at least if I get up and walk, I've had one win in the day. So I've recentered a little bit.
Arabie?
Yeah, really difficult, right? In our positions, as we're Reagan and I are working on another panel as we get ready for NAIA convention on women in coaching, and just kind of that balance of family life. Really difficult. I have 4 kids. And so, you know, got 2 in college, and 1 trying to figure things out after just graduating high school, and 1 still in high school. Got 1 playing baseball in college, so trying to make that really important to make sure I don't miss any of those games, because that goes by really fast, and certainly don't want to miss those moments. So I think you know, just kind of being strategic about getting out to games or events, without the favoritism that can be easy to be at the big events where there's a lot of people. I got to be at a lot of the football games, I got to be a lot of the basketball games, but making sure all the sports are seeing, you know, a presence there with you. But for me, kind of the saving grace for me here is that, as I mentioned earlier, I have a lot of seasoned people in this athletic leadership team here. Wonderful game operations department that manages things so extremely well in terms of what happens there, that, you know, I trust it. I don't have to worry about it. I know it's going to be well managed. And having all those kind of right people in those right spots that are going to make sure it's done and it's done well, can really give you an opportunity to get away. And we all need to remind our staff that they too need to find some kind of work-life balance. Really proud of myself. I got into biking again here a couple of years ago. So, and then unfortunately had a biking accident on a bike trail and broke my arm in 2 places. So that was fun this fall. So that kind of threw me off my game just a little bit. So trying to get back out there as the weather warms back up, because that's kind of my decompressed time. I really enjoy getting out on my bike and riding again. I used to do quite a bit of that out of college, and with family and everything else had gotten away from that. So I don't think I'm the expert panelist here in terms of work-life balance. It seems like it goes in cycles, you know, where I think I've got it figured out for just a little bit, and then something kind of sucks you right back down. So, but it's surely something that we all need to do better of. I know every one of us on this call probably need to focus on that aspect a little bit and take care of ourselves. So I appreciate this conversation. So I'm sure Chad's got all the answers for us.
That's why I put him last.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly. I'll go 3 for 3 with the workaholic. So yeah, I'm in the same boat here with you in that. So I am married to a family counselor, and she has taught me quite a bit in this part of the world as far as this experience. The one thing I've been able to do as I've gotten a little bit older is actually basically putting in what I would consider basically fake meetings on my schedule. That there is an hour where there's a meeting that shows on my calendar. My secretary knows that there is no meeting, and I'm able to either, as Jesse said, go for a walk. Arabie, I'm not as good on a bike. I can barely run a couple of miles.
I'm not
now.
either. I had a wreck, so
Yeah.
you're okay, Chad. You'll do better than that.
Yeah, my knees are shot from basketball for so many years, but if I can get out and get a couple of miles in, and take that hour break, or it's even now, my kids are kind of in the high school, middle school, both of them in basketball and volleyball, my girls, and trying to get out and watch them play, or just leaving early and picking them up and trying to go home. But I'm probably like Jesse. I find myself, unfortunately, I get home and there's still a couple hours on the laptop of work that I have to do. And if I don't do it, and I actually like doing it at home because I know nobody will bother me, so I can get it done before I'm ready to tackle the things for the next day. So I learned really quickly in this position is that the to-do list is never complete. It's never done. And I have to be okay with understanding that what I have to do tomorrow, the Lord will give me enough for what I have to do for tomorrow. He's given me enough for today. And whatever is on that to-do list for tomorrow, it can wait, and it's going to be okay that it can wait, and I will get to it. I think Jesse said it really well about the fact of, my dad said one time, he said, if you want to know how important you are, stick your hand in a bucket of water and pull it out and see how much that bucket of water missed you. And I think it's a little telling in our positions that my job is to carry a baton and run the race well that God has set out for me. And my job is hopefully to pass the baton to the next person, he or she who comes behind me. And hopefully I've run the race the very best for as long as God has called me to do this. And hopefully I've set it up better for the person who came behind me than the person who was in front of me, And so I think it's just running the race to the best of our ability, but finding that balance. I think for all of us, we have to do it. And again, it works differently for all of us, but it's good to hear words of wisdom from Jesse and Arabie of finding things that we need to plug in to do that give us those moments and breaks.
No, thanks. And I think you've got to display it for your people, right? You've got to display it for your coaches. You've got to display it for your student athletes. As Arabie, mentioned, we're working on a panel about, women in coaching. And when I was coaching, one of the big things for me was to have my kids in the gym with me. I've got twins, and they've been here since literally day one. And before that, the fact that I didn't have them on the court was a miracle. But I always thought it was really important for my little kids and my big kids to see that you can do it, right? And that you can find the balance. Now, sometimes we don't do it well, but there are times where it's, it's really important for everybody to see, especially at this level, that you can have that work-life balance and that you can find the ways. And yes, I think everyone on this call has probably got some workaholic in them. But I think if we continue to do it through love and through servant leadership, I think that's what shows in the end. And it's not I was up till 2 o'clock in the morning getting this done. It's that I love you enough to make sure that I'm getting this done, right? Nick, have we had any questions come in? Drew, did you have one you wanted to throw in here before I hit them with a little bit of rapid fire?
Yeah, the only thing I'll say about that last topic is I've become a little better at work-life balance when I started making my coaches take off. Like I'd see a coach that's completely burned out and go, hey, you have to take the next 2 days off. It's mandatory. And so I started feeling like a hypocrite when I wasn't doing it myself. So that helps a little bit, not a ton. Okay, here's my question. And this is something I ask in interviews, okay? And I'm really curious what the three of you will say, okay? What is the human trait that when you run into it annoys you the most about people? Okay, that's the first part of the question. Second is, how do you deal with that person? Because there's a lot of athletes, you've had through the years that go, man, I just can't be on that team with that person. She just annoys me, but then you're like, well, you're going to have to work with someone. Like, what if she's across the desk from you and in a job you have after college? You're just going to quit your job, So those are the kind of lessons we're trying to teach our athletes. But what about you? Like, what kind of trait in a person annoys you the most? And when you run into that person, what are those things that you do to deal with them in a good way, positive way? Chad, we'll start with you.
It's a great question. I had my coaches just a couple of years ago, and I wish I would have done it a long time. We had them all do the disc training, and every coach had to go through it. And everyone, then we sat down, we did 2 days of training of learning from one another of like what makes each other tick, and knowing in the room, there are all these different personalities. And I'm a big person on, you know, when you say you're going to do something, do it. Is that, you know, if you say you're going to do something, I want you to do it, because that's the way I was brought up, the way I was raised in the church, that you do what you're expected to do. And so when I encounter those that say, well, I'll get it done, but then it's a day or two later, it's that what I call encouragement, and not in an aggressive way, but encouragement in a very positive way of that. Hey, you said you're going to get this done. Let's get this done. Or you said it was going to be done. I like information back relatively quickly. And I try to let my coaches know that if I send you a text message or if I shoot you an email, I'd like to get a question back, because remember, in our world, there are these lists, and I'm trying to mark things off that list as quick as possible. And the sooner you can get back to me, it's maybe one of those dominoes that can hopefully fix 3 or 4 things down the road. So I let the coaches know, hey, this is how I'm wired. And I know you may not be wired that way, but please know that this is what helps me be effective in my position. The sooner you get back to me, but when you say you're going to do something, please make sure you're going to do it. So that's probably my biggest one.
Jesse,
Yes.
I have 2, Drew, so I'd probably fail your interview question, I guess. So, and the second one doesn't usually last very long. Well, neither one probably does, but the finger pointing, right? The blaming kind of thing, you know, whatever it is, it's like, I know Jesse talked about resources, but there's some other department that isn't doing something right that's affecting them. And it's like control what you can control, right? So that kind of messaging, right? And trying to, this is usually the same person that focuses on, you know, the negative things, right? Rather than the positive things. So trying to say, you know, hey, what are 3 things that are going well today? You know, because that's the person that's in your office usually complaining about everything. And then of course, just at this level, you got to work hard. And so the person that isn't going to bring the work ethic each and every day just isn't going to be successful here. We don't have all the resources in the world. You know, it's a tough job. You know, we're carrying big rosters, and what we're asking our coaches to do on a day-to-day basis is a lot. And some people are made to do it and some people aren't. But if they don't bring the energy and the work ethic every single day here, and you try to vet that out through the interview process and have the search committees and the calls and everything else like that. But inevitably, somebody like this ends up on your staff that you're trying to manage on a day-to-day basis, that becomes that person that just kind of can consume you a little bit by trying to keep them on the right path. So, you know, you try some things, you try to put some support pieces around them. I think we do a pretty good job with having some mentor. We have a roster committee here where we have some seasoned coaches that are assigned certain sports and coaches to work with. And some of that mentoring can have an influence and make an impact. But inevitably, sometimes these are the people that just aren't going to persist with us for very long, because, you know, as rosters aren't hit and as our things aren't being done, usually, you know, it becomes hard to keep things going in the right direction. So
that's a really good question, Drew. I would probably bomb out of your interview. But I think, you know, the person that probably I struggle the most with, and after this webinar, people won't probably believe this, but I don't really think that I have an ego. I was telling Chad and Arabie before we came on that, you know, I kind of suffer from imposter syndrome, where like, you know, people are going to figure out tomorrow that despite any past success I've had, I am just smoke and mirrors, and there is nothing to this. And, you know, so so the person that I probably struggle with the most is the person who has, like, they got to be recognized, you know, they have to, and position equals power for them. And, you know, what do I get out of this? That is probably the person that I struggle with the most, because I think I approach athletic leadership from what, Reagan and Chad have talked about in terms of servant leadership and really wanting to see transformational change. Now, and that can come in a program, that can come in a coach's life, that can come in a student athlete's life, that can come in an institution's life. But I want to see something. So the person who is most annoying to me is the one who's like, well, you have to point out what I did well here. You have to point out I need to be recognized. And they don't come right out and say that, right? But they have 1,000 ways to tell you that. And so those are people that I have to, and the way that I deal with them is to try and to be kind and tell them, you can get unplugged and somebody else can get plugged in, and it really, the show goes on. It's not all about you, but that's probably the most difficult one for me.
Might want to put a bucket of water in your office, Jesse. That might be.
Yeah.
Great answers. I appreciate that. And none of you failed that question. The only way somebody fails that question is if they go, yeah, I really don't. I mean, I get along with everybody. I don't nobody annoys me, because that's not an honest answer. So thank you guys for that.
We had a question just come in. You've all kind of talked about working with your staff as you work through, concerns or issues, but do you collaborate with other ADs around the country when you face these issues? Do you have that group that you kind of lean on a little bit? I have Drew, so I'm not sure what you guys are doing.
Well, Drew's a good one. It's a good one to ask. I think for all of us, I think the important thing is sharpening one another. And again, depending on whether it be certain connections, or if some of us coached at a certain place, or coached against someone, you have just a natural building of a relationship that you have. I mean, Drew used to come with us in the Crossroads League and was a part of our AD dinner at the national convention every year for many years, and so I think sometimes getting outside those, Jesse and I cross paths both in the NAIA and other sectors as well, and just being able to sharpen one another and build those relationships. And again, I think those become so critically important, because I love going to convention and being able just to sit down with all of you, and Reagan cross paths with you at NACTA and gave you a hug. It's like just to be able to sit down and have conversations knowing that you're going through the same thing that I'm going through every day. And to be able to encourage, I just did a devotion with our men's basketball team yesterday on the importance of encouraging one another for the rest of your life. The word encouragement is something that we all need. And so whenever you get the opportunity to encourage somebody or to edify somebody, the Bible is very clear to us is that we are to take those opportunities to do so, because we're all trying to do the same thing. I think at the end of the day, all of us in the room are trying to use athletics as a vehicle to impact and shape and change your life, regardless if you're at a Christian institution or not. You are trying to help young people become better, hopefully husbands, wives, professionals, whatever you want to call it, that we're just using this pivotal time in their life to hopefully shape and mold them a little bit and prepare them for what comes next. And so if that is the focus, I think it's where hopefully we find the pure enjoyment of what I call the eternal paycheck, of knowing that we get to sit back and watch lives forever be changed because they were underneath our tutelage or because they were a part of our program. And you get to watch them go out and change the world because of their life. So it's fun to watch it. So I think, hopefully encouraging one another through that journey, ADs is an important, very important thing to do.
Oh, fantastic. All right, I'm going to hit you really quick as we're winding up. I've got a couple rapid fire questions. So I'll just go around the stream. I'll go Arabie, Jesse, and Chad to finish these off. Okay. What are you reading?
What am I reading right now?
What are you reading right now?
Let me look over. This is the book. Just 1 minute. This is the one we just recently read with our department. So I just wanted to share it as I have the opportunity. We went through some issues here with one of our programs, and good book. Our entire department has had the opportunity to take a look at this book.
No, that's a great one. Jesse.
Oh, I have about 6 of them going. So there's, which is how I read, but there's Hope for Compassion, I think, that's written by the guy that does Convoy of Hope. So.
Chad?
Well, for me, the good word, the Bible, is a place to try to stay every day. But the most recent was "Keep Chopping Wood" by
Oh, yeah, that's a good one.
Keep Chopping Wood. Gave it to one of my newer coaches. It's good for me because it's a quick read. So it's a very short one for those of you out there who are extensive readers like me.
Okay, next one. What podcast are you listening to? If you're a podcaster. Arabie?
I'm not a podcaster, so I can't come up with one for you right now.
Jesse, what do you got?
Got a bunch of them. I listened to Malcolm Gladwell. I listened to a guy called Andy Hedges who interviews cowboy poets. I listened to let's see, Jamie Beckler. And there's a guy named Travis Wyckoff that does Coaching DNA, and I like his stuff. And then I've got a couple of pastors that I listen to as well.
Okay, Chad?
Sports Spectrum, Jason Romano is a great one, and then of course also John Maxwell is another one too.
I'm a big Molly Fletcher. Okay. One thing you've done in the past year that's been a positive change in your life. Arabie?
Well, mine was starting biking again, so definitely a positive change in my life.
Jesse?
Oh, goodness. So I got back to sending people notes.
Good one. Chad?
The blocking out the hour on my schedule started about a year and a half ago has been the highlight for me.
Okay, last one. One piece of advice for a young administrator. Arabie?
I feel like it's cheating, but find the work-life balance. As quick as you can, because I think that's going to bring longevity in this field for you. If you can find it, the sooner you can.
Jesse?
Think of this as a math formula. Persistence over time equals success. Don't think you're going to get it in one day. There is no such thing as an overnight success.
Chad?
Show up and be consistent every day, and remember that everything you say and everything you do, it all matters.
Well, perfect, guys. Thank you so much for your time today. That was that hour went quick, and I hope everybody on our call, thank you everybody for joining us. I hope you got as much out of this as I did. And I think, one of the things that we talked about real quick was, the great question of how do you use ADs around the country? And I think this is a great way for us to really start to get to know each other. I think the value of these relationships and the conversations that we can have. And I think one of the things that Drew and I are really hoping to establish is to do this more often, to get to know some of our peers across the country. So when we need these tidbits of information and we need this help, we've got people to lean on. So thank you very much. Appreciate all of you, and have a great rest of your day. And those of you coming up on playoffs, good luck.
Thanks for joining us, guys.
Thanks, Drew. Thanks, Reagan. Thanks, Nick.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Jesse and Arabie.
Bye-bye.